Hello my keto peeps, it's Samaya and welcome back to my channel, I Don't Sugarcoat. When I started my keto journey, I was so ready for change that I was willing to give up anything just to get started on my weight loss journey. So all the foods that I had to give up didn't seem like that big of a deal at the time if I was going to get the results that I was hoping for. Now that I've been doing keto for 13 months, I do find that there are some things that I missed previously, and bagels is one of those things. And so today we are going to be making bagels, and not the regular kind that you usually see that involves almond flour and cheese and whatnot. Not that there's anything wrong with that recipe. I've made that one once before and it was okay, but I find that it just really wasn't for my taste. So I've been working on a recipe and I've nailed it down. And today we're gonna make cinnamon bagels. So let's get started. Okay, you guys, this recipe is really simple. It goes back to my bread recipe. And I told you guys before that that recipe is very versatile. And I'm gonna be showing you many different recipes to use that starts with that as a basis. So today we're starting with the bread recipe as a basis. And if you have not seen that video, I'll go ahead and link that up here in this corner so that way you can watch it. So instead of adding all the ingredients to the bowl, instead of having all the ingredients sitting out, I've already added them to the bowl. And I'll just tell you what's in here. I have in here 1 1/4 cup of Vital Wheat gluten, 2/3 cup of Lupin Flour, 1/2 cup of oat fiber. I have a teaspoon of salt. I have 1/2 teaspoon of xanthan gum. And because I'm making cinnamon bagels, I put in 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. I put in just a dash of some nutmeg. And I also put in 1/2 cup of pure sweetener. Now, pure sweetener has a 2-to-1 ratio with sugar, or to sugar, I should say. So that means that it's 2 times sweeter. So if you're gonna be using something that has a 1-to-1 ratio, you'll wanna put in 1 cup of sweetener or adjust it to however sweet you want it if you're making a cinnamon bagel or a sweet bagel. If you're not making a cinnamon bagel like I am today, you can just make a plain version using the exact bread recipe, and you don't have to add anything extra or do anything extra to it. You'll just have to follow the steps that I use when making it. Or if you want to add any other flavors, like if you want to do an onion bagel or whatever other flavors you like, all you have to do is start with the basis of the bread recipe and then add what you need to it. Now, for a sweet bagel, I took out the 3 tablespoons of Confectioners Swerve because I was going to be adding my own amount of sweetener to this. So this does not have the 3 tablespoons of Confectioners Swerves. It just has the 1/2 cup of pure in it. So make note of that. But if you're making a plain bagel or any other savory flavor, you can keep the 3 tablespoons of Swerve in it and it will be perfectly fine. So I don't think there's anything else that we need to go over at the moment. So let's get started making these bagels. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to add a cup of water that is between the temperature of 125 to 131 degrees Fahrenheit to your mixing bowl. Now you want to add in a tablespoon of instant yeast. And if you watch my other bread video, you know about the honey deal, but for those of you who haven't, I know that it is not necessary to proof instant yeast, but I just like to do this step anyway. So you want to add 1 tablespoon of honey to your water and yeast mixture here. It's so hard to squeeze this out sometimes. Okay, actually, you know what? First, I'm gonna let this get a quick mix. Okay, and now we'll go ahead and add our teaspoon of honey. Okay, still some in there. Oh. Okay, now let's let that get a quick mix. Okay, to this we want to add 2 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And then we want to add 2 lightly beaten room temperature eggs. And now we're going to let that get a quick mix. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and add in all of our dry ingredients. Now, here I have a little bit of water, 1/4 cup actually, of warm water, and I have this over here just in case my dough feels a little bit dry, because I've added that 1/2 cup of sweetener to it. So just in case my dough seems a little bit dry, I'm gonna add just a little bit more water to it, but it shouldn't take much. So now go ahead and lock it in place, and we're only gonna let this mix together until it's all nice incorporated and has formed a ball of dough. And you wanna mix this on low. And the cinnamon, you can really smell it. I feel like I can smell just a hint, that hint of nutmeg I put in there, but it smells really good. And my dough looks like it's doing just fine, so I don't think I'll be needing to add the extra water. So we're gonna go ahead and turn that off. Yeah, it looks just fine. So we're not going to be adding the extra water. And you just want to go ahead and clean your paddle off, get all the dough off. Okay. And now you want to remove it because we're going to be putting our dough hook on. Oh, and you guys, I just want to say a quick thank you to all the people who have subscribed so far. Even though I know my channel is brand new, it's still really small in its infancy stages, I still want to say thank you, and I appreciate everyone who has subscribed thus far. Like, you guys, you're amazing. I know you guys have been showing appreciation for the bread recipe, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so now what you want to do is just take a spatula and just bring your dough together into a nice little ball right here at the bottom of your bowl. So that way it makes it easier for the dough hook to catch the dough and start to knead it. Okay, now put your dough hook on, lower it into the bowl. I'm gonna readjust my ball here just a little bit because it's more in the front and not in the center. Okay. Now go ahead and lock it in place, and you want to mix this on medium. You want to let this go for about 8 minutes so it can knead the dough really, really well for you. All right, you guys, so I'm gonna do this and I'll either fast through or cut to when this is done. All right, you guys. Okay, 8 minutes has passed, and now you should have yourself a beautiful ball of dough. So go ahead and remove it from the dough hook. And if you've made the bread recipe, you'll know that this dough will feel substantial. You will notice that this dough feels more sticky than the other one. I just could not get that word out. Okay. All right. Oh yes, this is very sticky. Okay. So now what we want to do is we're going to divide this dough into 8 equal pieces to make our bagels. Now, I'm going to do a different technique than I did the last time I made bagels, because what I found is, you know, with regular dough that uses all-purpose flour, that dough is easier to shape and mold versus this dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make my 8 balls now, because beforehand I would let this dough rise and then I would punch it down, let it rest 10 minutes, and then cut it and make the balls of dough. But what I found is the bottom just did not want to stay together. So even though the bagels would look beautiful on top, underneath they were hideous. So I'm going to try a different technique. I'm going to preform the balls already and let them rise that way, and then we'll see what we get. Now, if this does not work out the way I'm hoping it will, then you guys will just never see this video. So let's go ahead and cut it in half, and then we'll measure them and see how much they weigh. Not measure, we'll weigh them. All right, just a little bit more. It doesn't have to necessarily be perfect, but you want to get it to as close as you possibly can to being even. And that's pretty close. It's only off by 0.04 ounces, so that's pretty close. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and cut these into 4s. Now what I'll probably do is I'm just going to probably skip ahead to showing you guys my dough once it's already equally divided and show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so now that I have them divided evenly into 8 equal parts, what we want to do now is we want to take each part and we want to roll it into a ball. And it's much easier to put these in a ball before they start to rise. So you're going to be able to get it into a ball pretty easy. And don't worry if the bottom doesn't look perfect, because it will rise and it'll be fine. So as you can see, my bottom doesn't look perfect, but it's okay. It's in a ball, it's great. So go ahead and get all of them rolled into a nice, neat ball. Okay, so now that they're all rolled into 8 equal portions, now what we're going to do is we're going to let these sit and rise for an hour to an hour and a half. So today my kitchen is a little drafty, so I'm going to be letting mine rise in the microwave today. So I've got my pans here all prepared, and I'm going to be using a cupcake pan, a large cupcake pan, because I want these to rise nice and big, and a smaller one wouldn't do. So if you have a larger one, use that. Or if your kitchen is warm, just put these all on a large cookie sheet and let them sit out and rise that way. And then the other two, I'm gonna put on a cookie sheet. Okay, and now I'm gonna cover these with some oiled saran wrap. And you just wanna loosely cover these. Don't wanna cover them tightly because you want them to have enough space to be able to rise. So just loosely lay that on there. Trying to keep it from sticking to me. Okay, so if you want to let yours rise in the microwave, what you're going to do now is you're going to get yourself a microwave safe cup. You're going to put some hot water in it and put it in the microwave for a minute or two and let the microwave get nice and hot and humid on the inside. Then you're going to place your your bagels, sorry. You're going to place your bagels in the microwave, leaving the cup in there so it can keep up the nice humid atmosphere. And you're going to want to let these rise for an hour to an hour and a half. I find that about an hour and a half works best. So check them at about an hour, see what they look like. If they look fine to you, then take them out. So we'll come back once these have risen, and then we'll move on to the next step, and I'll show you guys how we're gonna make these into bagels. Hey guys, so our bagels are done rising. And as you can see, they have only risen to about 1/3 of their original size, and that's fine. The one thing I forgot to tell you was that when using this bread recipe and adding sweetener to it, I don't know what it is about the sweetener, but it changes somehow the way that the dough rises. Because without adding a large amount of sweetener, it rises just fine. But when you add a certain amount of sweetener, probably more than like 1/4 of a cup of sweetener to this recipe, then it changes how long it takes it to rise. So I initially said that this would take about an hour to an hour and 30 minutes. And that was me thinking about the bread recipe. No, this actually took somewhere between 2 hours and 15 minutes to 2 hours and 30 minutes to get to this point. And that's okay, because we don't want these to have a lot of air in them anyway. Bagels are more of a dense bread and not really airy. So this is a good size. So you're gonna wanna let them rise for up to 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm so sorry about that initial slip up, but these are gonna take a little bit longer. And I think it's just due to adding the sweetener, because that's the only thing that changes in the recipe. So that has to be what is changing the composition of how these rise. Okay, so now we just want to go ahead and take off our saran wrap, but don't throw it out if you're using saran wrap, because we're going to put it back over these. So just lay them down. Okay, so now what I want to do here is, let's move this out the way first. We want to switch this to a larger cookie sheet. And I'm using my much larger one, but you use the biggest one that you have. Okay. And as you can see, like I said, the bottoms, they're fine. So I have already sprayed this with some cooking spray. And now we just want to transfer all of these to here. But I'll start off with the 2 of these. Okay, so these have not risen that much. They don't have a lot of air, and that's totally fine. We don't need them to. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and stick our fingers in the middle of this, and we're going to put our hole for our bagels. And this can be a little tricky, guys, so you might need to actually add a little oil to your finger if it's really sticking to your finger. Sometimes I have to do 2 fingers, but you just want to get it in there and start stretching the hole. you want to make sure you get it all the way through the bottom. But be gentle in dealing with these because we don't want to mess them up. And if you can get your finger, your forefinger and your thumb in there and just give them a little stretch, perfect. Okay, and a hole that size is fine. It's gonna close up a little bit anyway, but that's perfect. So let's do the same with this one. And again, be as gentle as you can with this because you really don't want to mess your dough up because it's very delicate right now. Okay, that looks fantastic. And we're gonna lay this, we'll move it over some. Okay, and now we wanna do the same thing with the remaining 6. So be gentle, popping these out of the pan. Just gently grab them if you can. Okay. I'll just go ahead and remove all of them now, and then we will poke our fingers through the centers. Again, be very gentle. Oh, as I said, be gentle, I freaking dropped one. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now we've got them all out. All right, now go ahead and same thing, finger right through the middle, pick it up, and then just kind of open your fingers in the middle right here so you can get your finger through there. And just get your finger through, spin it around a little bit, and then go ahead and get your thumb in there and stretch and turn. Oh, I should say now, seeing as how we only let these rise to 1/3 of their size, we want to do the same thing if you're making plain or savory ones that don't require as much sweetener to go in there. So we're going to want to let them rise less than the hour and a half. The hour to hour and a half. It might only take roughly 45 minutes. So you're going to want to check. I would say start setting a timer at about 30 minutes and then go check, see what they look like. See if they look like they've risen to 1/3 of their size because we don't want them to rise too much. All right, now we've got our holes in all of them. So what we want to do is we want to take our same saran wrap, or if you're using a damp towel, put the damp towel back over them, and we're going to let these rest for 10 minutes. All right, and then after these rest for 10 minutes, that is when the excitement begins and we start turning these into bagels. So I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, guys, it's time to have some fun. It's time to get our bagels going. Okay, so as you can see, I have a pot set up over here and I've got some water in here gently boiling. So if you don't know how traditional bagels are made, you actually boil them first, which helps them to get that chewy texture that we know as classic bagel texture. And then we're going to bake them. So you want to boil these for anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes, depending on how chewy you like your bagels to be. If you don't want them to be that chewy, just do 1 minute per side. So that will mean 2 minutes per bagel. I like a chewy bagel, so I'm gonna do mine's 3 minutes per side. So it will be 6 minutes per bagel. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in, I think I can comfortably fit 3 bagels in here. So I'm gonna put 3 bagels in and start them to boil. And I would say to put them in top side down, so that way when you flip them over and you go to remove them, you just need to gently scoot them off your spoon back onto the cookie sheet without flipping them over. Okay. And you want to make sure it's a gentle boil and not like a full-on hard boil. And they will start to expand in the water, and that's what we want them to do. Okay, turn my timer on here, and now we've got these going for 3 minutes, and then we'll flip them over and do the other side. And they're looking great. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're smelling great, you guys. And see, this is what I love about this bread recipe. I can't stress it enough. It is so versatile. There's so many things you can do with it. And that's why I like use it for every type of bread, any type of bread thing that I want to make. I usually use this recipe and I just make adjustments for whatever it is I'm doing. And if you see they're starting to get a little close to each other, just go ahead and give them a little shove over. So, you know, because the dough is getting wet and you don't want them to stick to each other. So just keep them from like touching and stuff. Just give them a little shove out of the way. And as I said, like with the other recipe that I tend to see for bagels that use almond flour with like cream cheese and mozzarella cheese, this isn't something you could do with that. You couldn't boil them first, so you're not really getting that chewy texture. And I don't know, for me, the texture of those bagels I just don't really care for them. So that's why I was looking for something else. And one night I just kind of was like, you know what? I think I can make this bread recipe work as a bagel. And here we go, you know? So the other thing about that bagel recipe was, you know, I know that the goal of keto is to have a high fat, moderate protein, low carb diet. That's the point of it. But certain things, the way that they're made, they tend to have way too much fat in them and you really can't consume much of them. So I found that when I made those bagel recipes, that by the time I put the cream cheese on it and stuff, it just had time to flip it over, but it just had too high of a fat count for me, and it made it hard for me to get other things into my meal. So that's why I also stopped making those. Now, don't worry about the appearance of them, because yes, they're gonna look a little wrinkly and weird on the top at first because they've been boiled, but that will totally change once we bake these. So you wanna have your stove on to 350, preheating. Get those preheating to 350. Oh my goodness, I forgot to turn my timer back on. I'll just have to stop this a few seconds early. Yeah, but this, you guys, you're not gonna be sorry with this recipe. This is totally legit. It's totally gonna take you back and remind you of a bagel, you guys. Now, I chose to make these a sweet bagel just because there was these, they were French toast bagels that I used to just love before I started keto. And they were already sweetened nicely, and I just needed to add the cream cheese, and that was that. So that's why I chose to make these sweet, because I just want to be able to add the cream cheese and just be done. But here's an alternative idea. If you want to just make these plain and use like maybe take some cream cheese and throw in like some brown swerve and cinnamon, and then turn that into like a brown sugar cream cheese, that could totally work. Like then you can still have a bagel that you can put all different types of cream cheese on. Like one of my other favorites is the chives one. Oh, I love that one. So maybe the next time I make bagels, I'll just make them plain, and then I'll just make different variations of cream cheese to put on them. But since I intended these to be more of a snack for me anyways, you know, my little sweet treat, that's why I just went ahead and made these sweet anyway. But yeah, you could just totally do that. Make these plain and then just get some cream cheese, make some adjustments, put them in some little containers, and now you got different flavors of cream cheese. All right, and since I started that a little bit, since these got in a little bit before I started that, now we're gonna take them out. Now look at them. You see, they've doubled in size. They do look wrinkly, but like I said, that's nothing to be concerned about. And they look amazing, guys. They're already starting to look like bagels. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get 3 more in. All right, the last 2 are done. So let's get those out. Okay, I'm just gonna turn this eye off. Okay, so now we wanna brush these babies with an egg wash. Okay, now that I've got them all nice and brushed with the egg wash, we are gonna put these in the oven for 350 for 20 minutes. And I want you to check them halfway through to see how their browning is looking. If they are the color that you like, then go ahead and lay a sheet of aluminum foil on top and let them cook the remaining 10 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in, and when we come back, these will be all nice and done, and I'm gonna have one cut open for you and ready for you to take a peek. All right, guys, see you in a bit. Hey guys, okay, so the bagels are done. They're out of the oven. They stayed in for a full 20 minutes. It was about 15 minutes before I needed to cover mine with aluminum foil. So still check yours between the 10 to 15 minute mark, but look at them. They are perfect, you guys. They look amazing, smell amazing. And I have already taken the liberty of cutting one open. I toasted it on an eye, put some cream cheese on it. So I'm gonna bite into this baby right now to see how it turned out. Okay. It's perfectly sweetened. The texture is chewy like I want it. I mean, you can't ask for anything else when it comes to a keto bagel. Like, you're not gonna get better than this, I promise you. Like, I'm gonna eat this whole thing off camera, but the texture is perfect. I cut another one open for you guys just so you could see. See, look in there. Look at that texture, you guys. That is solid. That is chewy. Now, if you don't want yours as chewy as this, remember, you can boil them for 1 minute per side or 2 minutes per side, depending on how chewy you want yours. But me, I like a good chewy bagel. And this is where it's at, you guys. I promise you, you can't go wrong. You're not gonna be sorry. This is going to be your new bagel. I don't think I got anything else to add to this, guys. I think we're done for the day. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will put the nutritional facts for this in the description of this video because I'm shooting this on my phone and that's where I have the facts at, on my phone. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I remember to put it on my iPad. Sometimes I don't. I'll try to get better about that. But yeah, so I'll put the nutritional facts in there. I believe though that these are roughly 3 net carbs though. Either 2 or 3 net carbs per bagel. So I'll put those facts down there. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click the subscribe and then click that little bell so you can get notifications when I put out a new video. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, bye.